All right. Hi, everyone. Tonight we're going to be nature journaling some plants, and I'm super excited about it. You're not going to believe the different plants that we're going to be sketching and nature journaling tonight because sketching plants and nature journaling plants is one of the perfect things to do with your sketching, with your nature journaling. And I can't wait to dive right into it. It's going to be super, super fun. And also, you should stay to the end because we might dissect some plants too, or at least some parts of the plant. As you can see, I'm in the Galapagos and I'm at the learning community where I am working because the internet here is better and there's mold growing on the screens behind me because it's so humid here. So we're going to start with some warm-up. So make sure you have your sketching supplies ready. If you need to do it on a scrap piece of paper because you're too precious about your nature journal, you can do that, or you can do it all in the same place because we're definitely going to start off a little bit quick and a little bit loose. We'll probably do some blind contour drawings with some of these basic shapes and stuff like that. So get ready for it. I see that Mindy's here, Cindy's here, James is here, Jean is here. It's going to be really fun. It's going to be a good hands-on practice for all of us. So make sure you get your sketching and nature journaling supplies out. This will be really good practice. And like I said, we might end up having to dissect some of these things at the end. It's nighttime here. I mean, it's dark already. It gets dark quite early. And it's a little bit spooky here at night. This is not where I spend the night. Usually I'm just usually here working during the day with the kids, but the internet here is quite a bit better. However, there's like weird noises and things running around on the roof. I think that there's a lot of rats living around here. Oh, Kate is here as well. Okay, so we're going to start off sketching some pretty simple stuff like this. I think this will be great for a warm-up. So blind contour drawing would be good. If you want, you could do modified contour drawing as well. And I'll just leave it here sort of silhouetted on my paper. I'm going to try to do a little bit of a small one, and I'm looking at it on the computer. So I see basically the same perspective as you do. And it's hard for me to look at my drawing, which is part of the idea with blind contour drawing. So we're going to get warmed up here with some blind contour drawings. I'm going to do another one. So go ahead and get your sketching stuff out. It's a good chance to at least get a little bit of sketching in if you haven't done any today. If you've already done some drawing or nature journaling or sketching today, that's great. But you could always do a little bit more. I've been carrying a small sketchbook, and that has been helping me just do a little bit. Whoa, this one's really wonky. It's been helping me get a little bit more sketching in every day. I think I'm going to be sweating tonight because it's so hot and humid. The El Nino starts here right around Galapagos and has an impact on the rest of the world. And it feels like it is warmer than it was when I was here last year. All right, there's a quick warm up with this one. I got in 4 blind contour drawings. Let's do blind contour on something else. I'm going to put these flowers out of the way so you don't get ahead of everybody else with those. Let's try this because it's quite a different shape. This time I'm gonna just put it here on the table. Go ahead and try doing a blind contour drawing of this one, and we're gonna play around with some different positions and angles and foreshortening and stuff like that. Oops, that was sort of a modified contour drawing because I picked my pin up and looked a little bit. So remember, we're just getting warmed up. We're loosening up those drawing muscles and also our hand-eye coordination. Blind contour drawing is always a great place to start. Now that I've got a few of those, I'm actually going to do a little bit of metadata. And in this case, I'm going to do, it's good to show when something, especially if it's in your main journal, like if it's on a scrap piece of paper, it doesn't matter as much. But since this is in my main journal, I'm going to make a note that this was a live episode of the Nature Journal show. And so what I do is I make this little symbol for like a laptop. And that is like, instead of putting a location, I am in the Galapagos on Santa Cruz Island, but more importantly, for the moment, I am I'm online as part of this live show. So you can put that too. If you're working from videos or photos, it's good to put a symbol like that. And today is July 19th. All right, so got that in, and it's 7 o'clock here. I'm still having lots of issues with the different clocks. I haven't been able to go live on LinkedIn because every time that I set it up, it thinks I'm on mainland Ecuador time, and then I set it up so that it'll be an hour earlier or an hour later according to mainland time. But then when it comes time to go live, the clock doesn't recognize that, and it won't let me go live 1 hour early. So that's been a little bit annoying. So, okay, next thing, let's get another plant here to do blind contour on. And I think this one's perfect because in this case, we have a weird shape. That last leaf was a little bit too close to sort of one of these cartoon leaves that you might have in your head. So like this, it's a little bit too cartoonish in the shape, not that challenging. So in this case, we're going to play with this one that's partially furled up. Furled up, I think that's a word. So let's go ahead and do a blind contour drawing of this one here. Oh, Susan is here too. Hi, Susan. So there's one. I'm going to do another one. Wow, I'm going to get a lot of sweat on this facing page here from my forearm, and then that's probably going to mess up my watercolor and stuff like that later. So when you're in the tropics or anywhere that's hot, it's possible for you to this part of your forearm, if it's touching your paper and rubbing on your paper a lot, it can happen from your hand too. But I think it happens to me more from my forearm. It will later, when you get to this part of the page, it'll often provide a resist for the watercolor, and you won't get even watercolor, and it can affect your ink as well. So try to get in some blind contour drawings of this one in this particular position. I think it's like a really cool position. Maybe we'll get to play with the colors on this one at a certain point too. So right now we're just doing blind contour drawing, just getting warmed up. And I think feeling confident in blind contour drawing can be really good if you're sketching in the field and you need to do some plants really quickly. I think I actually have an example here where this was in the field sketching and nature journaling this purslane, and I almost did it as a blind contour drawing. Actually, if you look at parts of it close up, you can see there's these overlapping lines the same way that you would have if you were doing a blind contour drawing. You can see quite a bit of those types of lines. And the overall effect, I think, comes out quite well. So knowing that that is a possibility, this one is also quite loose. This is one of the Opuntia genus. It's one of the really characteristic cacti in the Galapagos. And you can see how loosely I worked with both of these. Wow, this watercolor was super loose. I just made this weird sort of halo around the fruit. So sometimes working loose, I think, can be really helpful because it can be fast. When you're sketching plants in the field, you might not have that much time. And so practicing blind contour drawing can be really empowering. Okay, so let's get another one to do something quite different for our next blind contour sketch. And here, let's take one of these here. This plant is an invasive species in Galapagos. So let's do this one here. This one has quite a bit of symmetry. So let's do a blind contour drawing of that. Let me move my sketchbook up here. All right, so this is a sketch along video, so hopefully you have your sketching stuff with you. Well, this one's going to be kind of tricky because of this bilateral symmetry. There's a lot of regularity in this plant. I might go a little bit slower. Oh, and I'm noticing there's a bunch of ants coming off of it. That's lovely. They're probably going to start attacking me. And one of these plants smells really weird too. Something here smells like garlic. Okay, so you can see how I sort of lost that central line. But whatever, that was still fun. Interesting to see how that works out. I'm going to do another one. So this one, it does in some ways look similar to the tree of heaven. This one is Cedrela odorata. It's also called the neotropical cedar. The Spanish called it cedar because the wood smells similar to cedar wood and has some similar sort of antifungal properties to it. All right, I'm trying a different technique and it's not working out quite so well. So yeah, this one is called Cedrela odorata. It's a neotropical cedar. It was logged. It's native to the mainland neotropics, like in Central America and South America, and it was introduced here in Galapagos, and it spreads all over the place, and no one's really done anything about it because it provides really good wood. And this table right here is probably made out of the same wood as well, from this neotropical cedar. Okay, so now that I have this page lying here, I'm going to go ahead and color these. Sometimes it can be really fun to color your blind contour drawings, especially with plants. So if you have watercolor, grab them. This can be a fun practice. So I haven't done any carving with it, but I've been at the educational center where I'm working. I have been teaching the kids friction fire by using bow drill, and we've been using this wood for that. Oh no, where's my rag? I need to find a paper towel. All right, get your stuff ready for watercolor. If you want, you could just keep sketching from the photos. And in case you didn't know, on YouTube, you can rewind and increase the speed and do all kinds of stuff by video. So if you need to go back and then catch back up to us, like if you wanted to go back and look at one of these plants more carefully, that would be a possibility. I'm looking at my thermometer and it's just, it looks like it's about 79 degrees. I wish I could measure the humidity right now because it's probably even more than 79. So it's 79 degrees Fahrenheit and it's 7 o'clock at night. The sun went down like over an hour ago. So it's quite warm here still. And the humidity makes it feel even warmer. All right, I'm going to bring this one back in case you want to see the colors for any of these. Here, I'll put that one right there. I think you can see that enough. And I'm going to start with this one. And it can be fun to just do sort of loose watercolors. I'm not going to get too loose because mine's going to take forever to dry in this humidity. So I'm using a slightly drier water brush, which means it's just older. Hopefully you watched that. Oops, that's not the leaf that I meant to be coloring, but because that's the one that needs the pink. Oh well. Hopefully you watched that video I did on how to use a water brush. That was something I'd been wanting to do for a while. And one of the tricks that I mentioned is having two different water brushes, one that is older and has a slower flow, and one that is newer and has a faster flow. One of the main challenges people have, and some people I think give up on water brushes because of this challenge before they figure out a way to deal with it, is figuring out how to deal with the water flow. It can be hard, especially when they're new, and it depends on the brand and the size and everything, but it can be hard to deal with the speed at which the water flows out of there. All right, so I'm gonna do a little bit of wet on this. I'm gonna take a little bit of the hooker's green, which is sort of just like a primary green that That's the one that's in the Crayola color that everybody puts on every plant, even though most plants don't really look that color green. I'm going to take that and drop some of that into these while they're still wet. I can hear rats running around on the roof and in the bushes outside. Rats are a huge problem in the Galapagos. I've never seen more or bigger or bolder rats. They're directly connected to the extinction of multiple species on islands all around the world. And they will probably inherit the earth in the not too distant future. Okay, I kind of like the way that worked. There's a little bit of this like edge color on here. Oh wow, it's like it's really hot where Mindy is. Dang. Okay, never mind. I won't complain anymore. But you probably are you in Arizona or something? Maybe you don't have the humidity also. Oh, good idea, James. I don't think there's any guns on. You're not. It's like really hard to get guns on Galapagos. You should see how big the rats are. I've never seen bigger rats. Oh yeah, Houston. Wow. All right, hang in there. You probably have humidity then too. Dang. Okay. All right, I'll stop. I will stop complaining, Mindy. Okay, let's see. Next, let's put some more color on some of these other things. Let's go ahead and go with this one because this is going to be probably the most fun here. And the cool thing about this, and I don't know why so many leaves have this, but this one's probably a cultivar, so it's probably been tinkered with by humans selecting for these showy colors. But this combination of pink is not completely uncommon in nature. And the cool thing is that these are complementary colors. So they're basically opposite of each other on the color wheel, which always provides for some fun. So let's go ahead and try to do this with wet on wet. So coloring in your plant sketches that you did with blind contour drawing is a really great way to let's use this one actually because that was the first one. This is a really great way to practice experimenting a little bit more with your watercolor because you did these sketches so quickly. All right, so I think how should we go about this? One technique that I talked about in the water brush class too is using having like basically two separate water brushes, and this can be really useful when you've got complementary colors that you don't want to contaminate in the wells. So because pink and green are opposite, getting some pink in the green or green in the pink is gonna muddy them immediately. Lynn, yes, there are some cats. Unfortunately, feral cats are also a huge problem in Galapagos. For example, there's this species of pink iguana that was only discovered in the like 90s or like late 90s or early 2000s. No one even knew there was this species of pink iguana. And it wasn't until this year that anyone ever saw the babies. So no one had ever seen eggs or babies of this species of pink land iguana in the Galapagos. And when they set up camera traps and stuff like that, and when they finally saw them, when they finally got some images of the babies, at the same time they also got images of feral cats eating the babies. And this is in a super isolated part of one of the Galapagos Islands up on this volcano. Nobody lives anywhere near within like hundreds of miles. There's no visitor sites or anything. And humans had never even seen these iguanas until like a decade ago, a couple decades ago, and already there were cats there eating the babies. So the feral cats are a huge problem in Galapagos as well. So it's kind of like the cats don't really seem to be reducing the rat pop. Unfortunately, rats with cats, so it's sort of really reduce the population that much. Okay, I'm trying to come up with a plan here for how to do this. I think what I'm going to do is actually a little bit weird, and I'm going to take some of this buff titanium and put it into this sort of margin around the edge. with a lot of water in sort of like a triangle here. And I'm going to just do all of the leaves at the same time. Actually, I'll just do the buff titanium through the whole middle. Okay, now that I have that, I'm also going to use this one for my pink. So I'm going to take some of this quinacridone, or what is it? Yeah, it's quinacridone magenta. No, that's not right. Can't believe I'm forgetting my magenta. Oh yeah, it is. It's quinacridone pink. I started second guessing myself there on my pink color that I've been using for the last 10 years. Okay, while this is still wet, I'm going to drop this pink in here. And already, because I had that buff titanium, it's doing some interesting little randomizing patterns. And pink is my lighter color, so good to start with that. And I'm going to put some sort of veins coming off in weird directions here. Oh yeah, I'm glad that Quentin got his broken the blank page syndrome. That's always can always be hard. I know. I used to struggle with that a lot. Okay, now I'm going to take my green, and this time I'm going to use a little bit of a darker green mixed with the leftovers from last time. Whoops, that was a bad idea. Okay, and then now I'm going to go around and I'm going to try not to like invade all of the pink. Oh, I can hear the rats fighting. So maybe I'm thinking now, maybe doing the green first actually would have been better, and then maybe the pink would bleed into the green. Theoretically, the wash, whatever has most water, will bleed into the part that has less water. If that makes sense. It will like displace it. Whatever, I think it's working out fine. This one's a little bit wetter. Probably could have used my wetter brush for this part, and it would have been fun. It's going to take forever to dry. All right, cool. All right, so I'm not going to color in these ones. It would be similar. So if you want to, you could color in your other ones. I think I'll do one more color in my cedars a little bit. And this is a good time to do sort of experimental watercolor stuff if you want to. So feel free to get loose and experiment, because the blind contour drawing sketches, you didn't invest that much time. You're not that precious about them. So you might as well do like some interesting watercolor experiment. And that courage with us into our next round of sketching. So I'm going to have to move my watercolor out of view for a little bit and let these dry over there. And let's see what plant to do next. Yes, my watercolor pans, I've been having to put them on top of a dehydrator like every single day because they've been getting really messy. And I think Daniel Smith, I don't think all watercolors are the same. Most of the ones I have are Daniel Smith, and they get really messy, and they start like, if this palette is closed, they start just like leaking out and melting and spreading around, and it can become a real mess, because if you touch just a little bit of that concentrated pigment and then you touch your paper, or when you put your water brush to it, you pick up this huge glob of color. All right, the ants are starting to find me. Okay, next plant. Let's skip to something different. Here is a plant. I don't even know what it is, but we're going to do a quick sketch of it. And this time we're actually going to take our time a little bit more than on the last one. So you know what I'm realizing is this doesn't show up that great on the camera. So let's skip it and go straight to one of these ones here. It's reminding me of some plants that I've seen in the desert southwest. I'm going to put a couple of these here. Remember, when you're sketching plants, you can also fictionalize what you're seeing to make it work better. You might want to make a note of that, especially if you're nature journaling. And this is one of the things that I think is good about pressing flowers too, is you can think about how to simplify the way they're arranged for making it more clear in your drawing. All right, so let's start sketching this with sort of like a combination of some of that looseness. I'm gonna bring the camera a little bit closer. Oh, no way. Okay, that's cool, Mindy. Yeah, this is something in the garden here at the educational center. So it's definitely not like a Galapagos. I didn't pick any endemic plants for this because you're not supposed to pick them. Okay, so that's a little bit closer there. So what we're going to do is we're going to take a little bit of the looseness from our blind contour drawing and just get a little bit more precise, and also start thinking about it more from a nature journaling perspective. Like, how do you want to show the different stages? Like, can you see different stages? Like, do you want to make this into somewhat of a diagram, and things like that? So start thinking about those approaches, and I'm just going to start going here. There's sort of like this constant background noise of rats squeaking. It's slightly unsettling. I just learned that on StreamYard, on the streaming platform, I can put some music on. So I might actually try that. Let me know what you think, but it might help me not hear the rat noises. So let me know what you think. See if this works. Tell me if the music is annoying. Hopefully we won't hear the rats now. Oh gosh. So it's the opposite. It seems like an opposite branching pattern. And coming out here. The one thing on something like this that you might have noticed that I just did is I went ahead and got this long line. It's really easy, especially for me. The way that I draw is with a lot of finger movement and sort of uncertainty and less confidence. And that doesn't always lead to more precision, especially with long lines like this. So one great warm-up for drawing is to practice finger movements, wrist movements, and then movements where you rotate from your elbow. So like, as you can see, I can get a much straighter line if I'm rotating with a larger radius. If I'm just rotating with my fingers, it's really hard to get a long straight line. Or like this, it can be useful to try to do that with a larger single movement, and then add all of these little things afterwards. Sometimes that way you can actually capture the gestalt of the plant a lot better, and maybe the details are actually less important, but you might be fussing over the details and mess up the big picture. That's really true with like gesture sketching. Whoops, that ended up being too thick there. That also is something that happens quite a bit when you're working on long, skinny shapes. Is you often accidentally make them too thick. It looks like we've got stages here of these flowers, what look like flowers. And it looks like the distance is getting bigger as it goes down. Don't forget, towards the end, We might have to dissect something here, and we've got some weird stuff coming up from my all-time favorite herbaceous plant family, Cucurbitaceae. And that one actually happens to be a native here, not endemic to the Galapagos, but it is considered native. So that means that it also occurs on the mainland, but has been here for a really long time, like before humans. So if you're nature journaling this, creating some sort of a diagram, adding information, adding questions, all of those things would be really useful. All right, let's try this music. Oh, same one. Okay, let me know if there's any perspective on these that you want me to do. Maybe I can hold one of them up close to the camera here. Oh, the lights on the wrong side. So now's your chance to maybe take a screenshot if you want and get a close-up view of any aspect of this flower. Remember, zooming in and zooming out is a classic technique for nature journaling, and it's the kind of thing that sets us apart from just regular sketchers and artists. I would say is zooming in and zooming out is such a powerful strategy. And like when I go do urban sketching or go to like other types of art events, I just can't believe that they don't do stuff like that. Or like in a figure drawing, you go to like a figure drawing group, and it seems like zooming in and zooming out would just make so much sense. I mean, Leonardo da Vinci is kind of the first person that I know of that used that technique, and it's a staple of nature journaling, and it kind of blows my mind not used more widely. So that's sort of zoomed in. Okay, so if you get the petals right, and maybe we can look inside just a little bit. See that? I'm going to start turning this into a diagram. Remember, turning it into a diagram takes pressure off the drawing. So if you ever feel like, oh, this drawing is sucking, turn it into a diagram. And that's what I'm doing. Here, when I was here in Galapagos, I couldn't do live. I couldn't even upload a single video. The internet has improved drastically in 12 months since I was here last, and now a lot of people have Starlink. So at the educational center where I work, there's Starlink, but apparently it's still not amazing because there's a lot of issues. Like I wasn't able to upload my Skillshare classes. So you can see here, I turned this. Oh, cool, Minnie, that's great. That's so awesome. One of the benefits of nature journaling is it really is a visual record, and being able to look things up is pretty powerful. Okay, so I got a few perspectives on it. Do you know, Mindy, by the way, if you know what the scientific name is or the family or anything like that, that would be really cool. guess the music doesn't automatically go by itself. That's funny. All right, so now what I'm going to try to do, even though I know this could be really hard, is I'm going to try to draw the part of the plant that is more complex. Ooh, I feel a mosquito biting my toe. So here you can see this part is way more complex. So I'm going to show you a way to kind of simplify that, hopefully. And is this watercolor dry enough to sort of dry? So I'm going to move the camera again to make it a little bit further away. Okay, so what we're going to do here is, and I think putting on the table here will make it easier to see this, is we're just going to lay this down like that, and we're going to try to draw it as sort of a spray. Sometimes watercolor can actually be a shortcut, so maybe we'll do 2 attempts. We'll do one that is a watercolor only sketch, and I'm going to make a box for that. It's a little bit of a risky technique that I don't normally use, but it's good to experiment sometimes. And sometimes creating a box like this is a way to create a safe space to experiment with something. You might even need to just write experiment next to it, like especially if you're feeling precious about your nature journal page up until that point. You could say that this is just an experiment. Okay, so first I'm going to do the one where I don't do watercolor first, or we could also do watercolor and draw with ink on top of it. Yeah, why don't we do that? So here I'm just going to kind of try to capture this sense that there's like a little bit of a central branch, but that it's also like there's a lot of complexity in here. It's important to be able to figure out how to sketch complexity and suggest patterns. You don't have to print the pattern. You don't have to make a perfect copy of the pattern. You don't have to exaggerate the pattern necessarily, but if you can just suggest the pattern, that can be really helpful. So I feel like we sort of did it there. We just don't really have the flowers. Maybe we'll have to add those with color, or we can make little stalk-like things here. And look at how we basically did that pretty quickly and easily. And that's more realistic than these ones where we just take one branch. So we're sort of zooming back out again here. One other thing that I like to do, and I don't have the bush right here to show, but is to show like a person, for example, and to put the bush or the plant or the tree or whatever next to them, and that gives you a sense of scale. That would be the next level zoomed out. Okay, now with this one, we're going to try doing it straight with watercolor and see how that goes. So I'm going to actually start with the red, I think. Oh, the mosquitoes are definitely finding me. Is that one still biting my pinky toe? Sometimes it's better to leave them biting you, because if they don't finish biting you, they don't fill up on you, on your blood, then they'll come back to get more blood. And then they'll bite you in multiple spots, and you'll have more itching bites. Okay, so I think I got a decent color. Maybe I'll do a little bit of a color test here. It feels like it needs a little bit more fire truck red. Actually, you know what? That's pretty close. So what I'm going to do is, oh yeah, I'm doing this one. So I'm going to go ahead and paint the flowers in first. Looking at the image, try to not make it just totally random, but based on what I see. And some here, get a little bit more color. And quite a few over here. Whoops, that was way too big. Dogs barking, rats jumping. All right, that's enough for the flowers. While I have this red on, I'm going to go ahead and put the red in other places. With watercolor, I like to sort of use a Henry Ford sort of mechanized assembly line process. Once I have the color out, I'm going to put it everywhere where I need to use that color. Though that was actually green. That will add to the efficiency of your watercolor process, especially if you have to, change and use multiple colors. You can do all of your watercolor of a specific color at once. It's a little bit less intuitive. Like you have to think things through and plan them out more. I'm getting a little bit of that resist right there because of the oils or sweat from my hand that I was mentioning I was concerned about earlier. And here I have to paint around these pale spots on the flower. Let's zoom back in there. Can I zoom in here? No. So there's these pale spots. I believe they're the anthers. They could be, no, there wouldn't be two stigmas, I don't think. Okay, so now the cool thing about doing that all the color all at once is that it gives you time to dry, and you might be able to go straight to the first ones, and they might be dry enough already to come in with the green. So now we're going to try to copy this green and paint that in. So I'm going to mix this green here. And it has actually a lot of this like quite bright yellow green. So I think I'm going to use one of my favorite colors. It's sort of like a 80s or early 90s color. It's a phthalo yellow green. It's a really bright, almost neon kind of green. And sometimes it's not the most common green in nature, even though I want it to be. But this feels like a legitimate time to use it. Okay, the most fun is going to be this one where we just go straight to watercolor. So hopefully you're ready for that. And what we're going to do, we can't really see the plant anymore. So I'm going to zoom back out so that when you do it, you can be looking at the plant. This thing I'm using to hold my camera, my phone, is not really meant for like moving it back and forth. But okay, so we've got this spray, sort of, I'm calling it a spray, like this conglomeration of branches and stems and whatnot. So let's see if we can try to draw that straight with watercolor instead of drawing with a pen or a pencil first, if that makes sense. Sometimes being able to draw with watercolor can be really useful because it can be so much faster. Some people think it's better because it's more artistic or whatever, but I think if you're nature journaling or sketching, one of your main limiting factors is always going to be time. And if you can do something faster, that's often good. Now, I know that doesn't sound very romantic, but You might want to, this might be something to do on like a separate sheet of paper because it's the kind of thing where it feels like you can kind of get warmed up to it and practice your strokes. One thing you probably already know is that with a watercolor stroke, and usually with strokes with most drawing tools, it will start off thicker and end up thinner. So I'm actually going to create just like a practice area for this up here to explain what I'm talking about. But if you want like a leaf, if you want to be creating a pattern with pointy tips, it's easier to do it on the end of your stroke than the beginning of your stroke. So notice how those came out like that. This could be the kind of thing that if you're really precious about your journal, or you have a page that's looking like a botanical illustration instead of a sketch, then you might be afraid to try things like this. And unfortunately, that's not pro learning. Pro learning would be to create a space where you can experiment with these kind of brush strokes and develop your technique, because figuring out how to make marks in different ways and how to have more control over them is how you get better and how you learn. But weirdly enough, we're often sort of blocking ourselves from those learning approaches and those experimental things because we're adults and we are better at deluding ourselves about what our intentions are, and we're too worried about our product looking good. I guarantee you a little kid though would mess around with making all these marks just because it's fun. So definitely go back and watch my episode on how to nature journal like a kid because I talk about things like that. It's super light, so it's hard to see, but maybe you just need a separate piece of paper. If you don't want to do it in your nature journal, take a separate piece of paper, because look at the product that we could create with this, and it could be done really fast. If you're sketching directly with watercolor, it's a useful technique to be able to do. So next, we're going to get ready for some weirder plants. We're going to sketch some really weird, way weirder plants, including one that's in my favorite plant family, Acacia. So got to get rid of this stuff. I'm going to have a lot of cleanup to do here after this, but let's get the dissection stuff ready. Should I put these safety goggles on? Okay, because check this out. You might have a guess about what family this is in already, but let's look first at the immature fruit. This is the immature fruit right here. Can you see that? Look how cool that is. And then this is the almost completely mature fruit right here. Isn't that really cool? I mean, look at the texture. If you like texture, this is super fun. And yes, we're going to cut it open. Oh, it looks like there's another vine mixed in here. Or no, it has these, wow, it has like these things that look like an almost completely different kind of leaf. I've never noticed, I've looked at this plant so many times and I've never noticed that. It also has these cool tendrils. So let's just lay this out in a position where we can all work on it at the same time. And you can be a little bit self-guided because a lot of nature journalers like doing their own thing. So let me try to arrange this in a good way. None of the flowers are open right now because it's nighttime. That would probably give it away. It looks like it has some kind of virus or something. Oh yes, maybe this is the one that smells actually. So maybe you won't be able to see the small fruit that well. I'm going to zoom it in so that you can see the plant more than you can see my pages, and then we'll come back to my pages later. So let's zoom in here. I'm going to work kind of quickly, even though this is the kind of thing you could always pause the video or come back and watch the video again later and get more detailed about it. Also worried my light is probably going to run out of batteries. So let me plug the light in. So feel free to go ahead and start sketching. I tried to set it up in a way where you can see the mature fruit. Here is the smaller fruit and some of the tendrils and the basic leaf shape, at least the basic leaf shape. But let me plug in this light. And once you get some basic sketch of that, we'll do a dissection. And I also want to dissect the passion fruit here because I think that'll be super fun too. Geez, an hour went by really fast, or 50 minutes or whatever. Maybe I should do another sketching plant on Sunday. Let me know if you want to do more sketching plants on Sunday. I'm not completely happy with how it shows up right now for you, but let's try to just get a basic sketch of it in. Okay. These leaves are complicated, so remember, don't sacrifice the gestalt, don't sacrifice the big picture for getting the minutia. The big picture and the overall vibe is more important than the minutia usually. Especially on sort of leaves like this, it's really easy. Like as you start doing all the lobes, you lose the overall shape. Tendrils are hard to draw, so those curly cues can be hard to draw. I'm going to keep my drawing pretty simple. Got here so far. I'm going to move things around in a second, so prepare yourself. I'm also going to take a note about that discovery I had of that weird sort of leaf stem thing that I'd never seen, and it looks very different from any other cucurbitaceae that I've ever seen before. So I just wrote, what, question mark, exclamation point, never noticed before. Okay, now I want to do the fruit. I'll start with the little one. And I think I'm just going to show it separate from the plant, or I could just fictionalize it and flip it down. If you can learn how to flip things upside down in your mind, that's like a superpower. I usually can't do it. I'm trying to get better. Or like writing upside down. What's your accuracy? Do you still mess up your B's and D's? Okay, baby fruit. Let me get a flower in here. Oh, those things are related to the flowers. The male flowers. So there's male and female flowers are separate on everything in the cucurbitaceae. And I just noticed that this thing, I thought they were just weird round leaves on a stem. You know, they look totally different from these leaves. But now I saw that one of these male flowers, what I'm assuming are the male flowers, have that at the base. So look at this. See that right there? That is a male flower. So on cucurbits like squash and watermelons, the male flowers are on this like really long stem. And then this would be a female flower right here. So this is a female flower that it's still on a pretty long stem actually, but it has an ovary. And you can see the petals already fell off, but the petals would have been there. You can still see the stigma is still remaining. And that's what turns into the fruit. And you can still see the remains of the stigma there. Here is a female flower, a much smaller female flower. And usually these plants will start making male flowers before they make female flowers, but I've never seen on squash or pumpkins before this type of leaf structure on the stem of the male flower, which is really cool. So sometimes your questions and curiosities and surprises can be answered in the field. So we just went through a phase of having a question and then actually answering it. And so I'll write, oh, dot, dot, dot. It is the stem of the male flower. Okay, so let's cut this open. I hope you're ready for this. Hopefully you got a little bit of this texture. Oh, shoot, I guess I didn't even draw it before getting ahead of myself. The spines are crazy. All right, that's good enough for me. Let me just put in that crazy cool color, even though it would probably be more efficient to wait until the end to do all the color, but it looks like a perfect permanent orange color for my palette, which I usually don't get to use very much. Oh, and there's a little bit of a green at the tip and at the stem. What a wild color. Okay, so if you want to fade one color into the next, there's a couple options. What I'm going to do is clean my brush. I'm going to clean my brush a little bit on my paper towel right here. Clean most of that orange off while this orange is still wet. Then I'm going to come in here and just sort of fade it first. So I faded the orange with a clean brush. Now I could wait until it dries and do the green, but I could also do the green now. So I'm going to pick up a little bit of green on my watercolor brush, and I'm going to come from the reverse side now. Clean it a little bit more, and then just kind of like dip it in like that. So we got a little bit of a fade, and that's something a good watercolor technique to know how to do with plants, because so many plants have a fade like that. It looks like on the stem it has a little bit less fade, but I'm also noticing now there's some green coming up onto some of the spines. Okay, I feel pretty good about that. All right, are you ready to cut it open? And then we're gonna have to cut open some of these dinosaur eggs too. I'm not gonna color the leaves right now. I don't feel like that's totally necessary. But making a mess is necessary. One of the things from last week's show, How to Nature Journal Like a Kid, is to not take yourself too seriously and to let yourself get dirty or messy sometimes. And I think cutting things open is a perfect example. Cutting things open is like a great way to learn more about something. And a lot of times I think as adults, we would shy away from that. So first, I'm actually going to cut it. Do I have multiples of these? I only have one. So one fun thing to do with your nature journaling is to imagine what way would be best to cut it, and maybe mentally cut it a variety of ways. and imagine like what it would be like, I think I'm going to cut it this way. Whoa, look at that. Is that what you're expecting? So let's draw it in this sort of cross-section perspective. Maybe we can draw this one at this sort of partial angle. That's actually a cool angle. And I'll try to hold this one up closer, a little bit closer to the camera, maybe like that. One good thing is to draw like a knife to show, you know, like, so what I would do is I would draw just simply like a knife like that. And this gives you the idea that we cut through, and now we have this cross section. So I'll let you draw the cross section separately, and then I'll show you what mine looks like. I'll try to hold still. The colors are pretty intense. All right, so I did the one that's in the perfect cross section, like the one that I'm holding. Now I'm going to draw the one that's slightly at an angle, like a 3/4 view, because you can get information from that angle that you don't get from the straight cross section. If you've never sketched or nature journaled something in a cross section or sort of cut things up before, it's really, really a great practice. You could also go somewhere where other people are cutting things up and you don't necessarily have to be the one to cut them up. Like if you go to a restaurant, or, you know, maybe your friend is cooking something, butchering something, a butcher shop, a seafood market. Imagine sketching plants at like a market in Southeast Asia or Indonesia or something like that. How amazing that would be. Okay, my arm is getting tired from holding it in this position, so take a screenshot or rewind the video to get the perspective that you need. If you're watching from home, the recording, you can just pause. Okay, I'm gonna set it down. Woo! All right, so let me show you what I've got here. I've got my straight on, and I'm gonna measure it too because I don't have scale here. Okay, it's about 2.5 centimeters across. Oh no, it sounds like it's starting to rain. I have to bicycle home from here and I don't have any rain gear. Okay, 2.5 centimeters across. So I'm going to add some color to this. That knife is a little bit small, so I'm going to draw another knife over here just in case someone didn't get the idea that this was a cross section. And let's add some color to that. And then we're going to cut open another thing. So I'm going to start with the orange on the outside. Of course, the lighter color first. I hope it doesn't rain. I have to bicycle home with my computer and all my... Oh, shoot, it's starting to rain. No! I hope I don't get stuck here with the rats. Dang it. Maybe there's like, I can find like a trash bag or something. A big plastic trash bag to cover my backpack with. Okay, I'm gonna do the fade. Clean that brush, clean the orange off, do the fade. Get the green. and come back the other way into the orange. Too much water doesn't help with that technique. Oh, lost control a little bit there, and it's just going to bleed on its own. That's fine. Okay, now can I do the red? I can't do the red because it's still too wet. So I'm going to wait to do the red. While I'm waiting, I'm going to do the green on the leaves. I might as well. Actually, no, while I'm waiting, I'm going to cut open the next thing. All right, so I hope you got this. I think the common name is bitter melon. You can actually eat that layer on the outside of the seeds, that red layer. You can eat that. And then this you can eat also. I think you have to cook it though. There's another type of bitter melon that's bigger, but this is sort of like a wild one. I think the other one is also from the old world. And this one apparently is from the new world because I looked it up and it's native to the Galapagos, not endemic. So it's probably mostly in mainland South and Central America. All right, cool. So now here is a passion fruit. These ones aren't totally ripe, but we can still cut into them and see what they look like. So feel free to do a sketch of what it looks like before you cut into it, which is kind of just a boring spheroid shape. But they do have a cool texture to them. Oh no, please stop raining. Ooh, good thing I didn't pick any of the flowers because the flowers are way too cool and complicated. And I would never want to stop drawing it once I start. Okay, so I'm just going to get a little bit of the tendril here. This one is not in the Cucurbitaceae, even though it is also a vine and has maybe some superficial similarities with the Cucurbitaceae family. It has its own complete own family, I think. Oh no. Oh man, the rain's getting harder. Okay, so I got the basic shape there. Let's cut into one. And I'm going to do the same cut as on the last fruit. And we'll have sort of like a joint comparison. Oh, maybe it would have been way cooler to do a ripe one because it's not actually that interesting on the inside. So let's see here. I'm going to do another technique you can do is you can show like a dotted line of where you're going to cut the thing. That would have been fine to do on our first fruit. And to tell you the truth, just practicing drawing these kind of shapes, like at different, look at how I rotate that. If you just practice every single day, cutting open a round fruit and drawing this shape like at different perspectives, I mean, your drawing would get so much better because being able to draw these ellipses in perspective is super important. Okay, maybe I should have ended the live show on time and then I would not have to deal with the rain. All right, we're going to cut open one more passion fruit and then we're going to call it a night. Okay, so here, this one's a little bit more mature, so maybe we'll actually get some like cooler color inside of it. There we go. That's what we want to see. And look, I'm also noticing that the consistency is different on the less ripe one. Oh, and the wonderful smell is coming out. Notice how this one seed is popping out of the inside and hanging over. That didn't really happen as much with this one. It's less liquidy, less ripe, more solid. And then this one's going to be more ripe, less solid. And I'm going to try to show how that, oh yeah, the rain is stopping. I'm going to try to show how that one seed, oops, I totally messed up my ellipse and I messed up the size of my seeds a little bit there as well. and there's like a seed dripping out. Maybe I'll just even exaggerate that and draw one just completely falling out. Totally messed up my ellipse because I stopped looking at what I was drawing. All right. So how many pages did you fill of sketches and nature journaling? That's what I want to know right now. We got to do some dissection. We got to do some sketching. We got to fill some pages. We got to smell some passion fruit. I was wearing my protective gear the whole time. Hopefully you were also, because you never know when you're cutting open a fruit, it could spray into your eyes. I think I filled 1, 2, 3 pages. These safety goggles are fogging up already because it's like 100% humidity here in Galapagos. Thanks to all of my Patreon members for making this show possible. Luckily, living here in Galapagos is cheaper than living in California. However, still just barely making things work. So check out patreon.com/MarleyPfeiffer to support the show. Not only will you get access to some behind the scenes stuff, such as the podcast that I'm creating, but you will also help support the show. And I want to let you know I'm going to be doing a lot more stuff about the loss of biodiversity and how I think nature journaling can help make a difference in the world, because I just finished reading this book about extinction, and it's really crazy the time that we're living in. So nature journaling and sketching plants is a really fun thing to do, but it's not going to be more biodiverse in the next 5, 10, 15, 20 years. It's going to continue to get less biodiverse. So if you can go out and sketch and nature journal, or even from images online, some of these species that we are losing, I think that nature journaling and sketching can play a role. It can help bring attention to these things that are happening, because the way things are going is we're going to just end up with a world with like rats, cockroaches, and the most common weeds. So nature journaling and nature sketching can make a difference in this world. By supporting me on Patreon, you are helping with that vision, helping with that mission of making the world a better place through nature journaling, and trying to do something to at least document the world's amazing biodiversity. Because just how amazing is it for us to be able to see different cool plants and animals like this. So I'm here in the Galapagos. It's a hotbed of extinction, and it has been for ever since humans got here. So trying to bring you lots of cool content from Galapagos. Check out my Patreon for more behind the scenes stuff about what's going on here. Keep up the sketching, keep filling pages, and I'll see you hopefully on Sunday. Bye.